The BYU Cougars are looking to rebound this Saturday when they take on the Arizona State Sun Devils in Tempe. What is it going to take to bounce back from that loss to Kansas? We're going to ask a guy who is right in the middle of that loss. That's Connor Pay.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. And as always, thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets added to your account, guaranteed. Start today at FanDuel.com. All right, please welcome in now BYU team captain, the guy who is back in action after a 7-week absence. He is Connor Pay, BYU team captain. And Connor, I'm going to start you here. Before we look forward, let's look back. I know you probably have wanted to leave that Kansas game in the rearview mirror, but what were the lessons learned from your first loss of the season?
Well, you got to finish in the red zone. That's the theme of the game for us on offense. It's really frustrating, when you move up and down the field through them like water, and then you get to the red zone and you stall out and you have 4 red zone trips and 3 touchdowns and 3 points total in 4 red zone trips. You're not going to win very many games doing that. And so obviously huge emphasis this week is execution in the red zone, because we actually had a pretty solid game on offense from 20 to 20. And it was getting into that red zone and then drives just stalling, making mistakes, and it was just obviously the direction for improvement is very clear, which is, I guess, if you want to view it as a silver lining, you can. But yeah, obviously really, really frustrating game.
Now, you talk about execution in the red zone. Was there anything you guys saw in retrospect that caused you guys to essentially seize up in the red zone? Is there something that you guys noticed, or is it unexplainable, I guess, in this circumstance?
No, definitely not unexplainable, but it wasn't anything odd. It was mistakes.
Okay.
It was poor execution is what it was. It was MAs or getting beat on a block here, me not snapping the ball. Like it was individuals making mistakes.
Now, I want to be sensitive with this, because I know that false start is probably just been grinding your gears, because you have the play call. I've rewatched that play. You were still checking when the snap was called for by Jake. How difficult is it in the moment to let go of that? Because it's such a critical down and everything in that circumstance.
Yeah, not a fun thing.
Okay.
That was an unfortunate situation. They didn't know what they were doing on defense. And so the 2 D tackles were screaming and yelling to the sidelines to figure out what was going on and shifting their front. And so they were kind of screaming right in front of me. And just kind of that noise from the front, I couldn't hear, the clap behind me. And then obviously too, at the same time, when they shifted to an odd front, I was trying to check to make sure we were protected the right way, because obviously a critical down. And then, I didn't hear the clap at all. And so I noticed Austin starting to kick to my right, and that's when I hurried and tried to snap the ball, but obviously too late. So just a critical mistake by me. And obviously not super fun, but you got to look in the mirror, take it on the chin, and take steps to move forward to make sure that something like that never happens again. And so that's what I've done this week, and changing a couple ways that I make my checks and stuff to make sure that I'm never doing it that close to the snap.
Okay.
So, there's a plan. I definitely went through it all and made sure that I have a plan to make sure that something like that never happens again. But no, it was nothing more than a critical error by me.
Now, obviously, disappointing when you guys lose your first game of the year, but the silver lining in all of this is you guys didn't lose control of any of your fate. You guys still control your path to the Big 12 championship game, and that goes through Arizona State this week. You guys still have your college football playoff aspirations. All that stuff is still in front of you. So how quickly did your mind, I guess the collective mind of the team, turn to the fact, okay, yes, we lost this game, but we didn't lose control of what we want to accomplish ultimately?
I think probably fairly quick. Obviously, that night and Sunday, pretty bitter days.
Yeah.
But I think Monday is kind of our day to review and flush, right? Win or loss, review and flush. Find your mistakes, create a plan to fix it, and flush it. That's what we did. And just honestly, we had Gary Bohannon got up and spoke to the team to start off our Monday, as a guy who's led teams to conference championships before. Just kind of to shed some light on that mindset, simply because a lot of us are experiencing it for the first time, where we're so used to being in the independent mindset at BYU, where it's like if you drop a game, your season is over.
Yeah.
And you virtually have no chance in independence of making a New Year's Six or anything like that, if you lose a game. And that's just not the case here. And so just helping the guys understand, like, look, that game was a clear wake-up call, right, for the offense especially, like that we have to practice and perform better because last week's practices were not up to our standard. I think it was in that sense, it's a good wake-up call. You have to, adverse situations are going to happen, as a player and in life in general, but it's how you respond to those situations that kind of define who you are. So we had Gary get up and talk about that, because his Baylor team wasn't undefeated, when they made it to the Big 12 championship, and just talking about, like, look, take your mistakes and take those things and use them as motivation, right, for this week to go out and perform better. And Coach Hill got up and talked to us about too, just like, look, you have to use these mistakes as a driving force for your improvement. And he noted how he's like, look, 7 of the last 15 national champions or someone all lost a game. And it's rare for college football teams to go undefeated. It's like the teams that can respond and rebound from that are the ones that are ultimately successful at the end of the season. And so that's our mission now, and so taking what we've learned from the Kansas game and attacking this week with maybe a renewed sense of urgency and intent, which I thought, I don't know when this will air, but it's Tuesday when we're recording it, and I thought we had a really solid practice today. I think that message was well received by the team, and I think people are preparing accordingly because obviously ASU is playing good football right now. They're a good team.
All right, so I do want to talk to you about ASU because you mentioned they are a good team, and you guys, much like ASU, were not expected to be anywhere near the position both of you are in currently going into this matchup. We will delve into that momentarily right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mint Mobile. Now, Mint Mobile's here for you to take care of you when it comes to your phone needs. The best thing about Mint Mobile is all of us want to save money. I think we're all searching for a deal this time of year. But when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month, I think a lot of us would scoff and say, okay, is that really true? But it's on a 3-month plan. You can do just that, $15 a month. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. You'll see right now all 3-month plans are just $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all those contacts you don't want to lose. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month right now. So go right now and check it out. $15 a month with Mint Mobile at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. It's $45 payment upfront required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speeds of slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. In addition, taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for more details. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Continuing on now with BYU team captain Connor Pay. And Connor, you mentioned there that some of you and your teammates have really only ever had to deal with what we call the independent mindset, the one loss, and essentially the season was over. And when you mentioned that, for whatever reason, I had kind of had forgotten that whole feeling. But it's true. I think the fan base is also still getting adjusted to the fact that one loss in a Big 12 conference is not a death knell. It's you guys still very much are in control, and you can stay right in the hunt. Whereas, as you mentioned, one loss or 6 losses in independence, it didn't really matter in the outcome.
No doubt. And that's the key, right? We're still in complete control of our own destiny. You know, I mean, obviously in terms of rankings and things change with all that, but in terms of being able to go and compete for a conference championship, if we can go take care of business this week and next week, we're going to be in the exact same position we would have been in if we won that Kansas game.
Now,
and that's kind of the beauty of it. You know, we're still atop the conference right now. And so now you have to flush that, put that away, and you have to take care of business.
Now, you mentioned rankings. You guys did get your latest college football playoff ranking Tuesday evening, dropping from number 6 to number 14. And somehow a team you guys have beaten already this year, SMU is one spot in front of you at 13. But, there's usually a way to determine who might be a better team because head-to-head results and the such. But I know you guys see those rankings. Does it do anything for you at this juncture to see that you're 14th in the country?
Nope.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, you talked last week about how the practices weren't up to your guys' standards. You mentioned the fact you feel like your Tuesday practice this week was more what you guys were looking for. Chase Roberts alluded to that in his post-game comments, saying that you guys had problems scoring in practice last week, and he felt like it translated over to the game. Can you elaborate on what led to the issues last week in practice and what has changed about this week?
I mean, I don't know if there's anything specific because obviously no one's coming in expecting to practice poorly, right?
Sure.
And it was just kind of strange in the sense that there was more mental mistakes than usual. And obviously us as leaders, we try to kind of corral that and get us back on the right track. And meeting as an offense, having a few additional players meetings last week to kind of try to jumpstart things a little bit, but I don't know what caused that last week. I mean, there's probably a little bit of obviously some guys are experiencing this success like this for the first time too, and so maybe a little bit of complacency slipping in a little bit, like, oh, we just win. It's just what we do. We just win. Where it's like a lot of the older players on the team are like, no, that is not how this works. Like the margin between winning and losing is so razor thin. And obviously that got exposed this last week. And so I think that just kind of the loss maybe just kind of shocked the other guys kind of back into how we were practicing in the first half of the season. The intensity was high today. We were really sharp, very few MAs, which was not the case last week. And so I don't know if I can put my finger on something specific that caused it last week. I think it was probably a myriad of things that kind of collided all at the same time or kind of came to a head. And, we got to get rid of those things this week.
So maybe some guys were, nibbling on the rat poison, to use that expression, versus, eating it wholesale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That analogy, funny enough, that a lot of people credit to Nick Saban. The first person that I ever heard it from, I'm not going to lie, comes from your old O-line coach, Eric Mateos. He was the first one I ever heard referred to it, but I know it's been around for a lot longer. But maybe not the entire team was, but you mentioned the fact that complacency sometimes can set in with teams. You talk about being a team leader and trying to root that out. How do you go about that if you notice that? What do you have to do as a leader as well as your other fellow teammates who are captains or assistant captains?
I mean, I think first and foremost, you have to show it yourself,
Got it.
right? You have to go out there and practice that way, and that's where it was a little bit difficult for me last week because at least I got cleared on Monday,
Yeah.
so I was on a pitch count most of the week. They didn't want me doing full practices yet. They wanted me to build it up to the game. And so standing on the side's a little more difficult because you can call people up and give speeches all you want, but sometimes those are received and sometimes they're not. What the guys on the field are ultimately what drive, the urgency, the intensity. And so for me, like as a center, like in practice today, A-Rod wanted us like, hey, we need to pick up the tempo and just have that urgency in practice because that'll seep into other areas, right? It'll sharpen you mentally. And so we pushed the pace a little bit in practice today and it was crisp.
Okay.
And so I think just physically doing those things, you have to lead by example as well as being vocal about it. But I think if those two things are synonymous, then you'll have good results. If someone starts trying to bring up the offense and give a speech to the team that doesn't play or doesn't play like that, nobody's going to listen to him anyways.
Okay.
And so I think it's a lot less about what you say and a lot more about what you actually do in practice on a day-to-day basis.
Walk the walk and also be able to talk the talk at the same time, right? Now, the other thing you mentioned, the fact you guys pushed the pace a little bit, is that going to be something you feel like will be a game thing as well, where you guys may go a little faster tempo in game if you're using that in practice as well?
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. It was definitely something to just kind of, take the lull out of practice a little bit.
Gotcha.
Where it's like sometimes you can get caught analyzing every situation. You realize it's been a minute and a half and you've run 3 plays.
Okay.
Or 2 plays. And so I think it was more keeping the crispness and intensity of practice. But, our offense used to go really fast, and we have the ability to do both. So who knows? We'll see.
Well, and that's the only other thing I was going to bring up on that point is you played with Jaron Hall. And I remember one of the hallmarks under Jaron is you guys would speed up and slow down, and you kept teams off kilter because of that. You was hit a big play. You guys were on the ball, like it felt like 5 seconds later and snapping it again and getting after him. But then every so often you'd slow it down as well and back off a little bit. And I thought that kept teams unable to really kind of get used to how you guys played. And that was the only thing I was, from my personal side of things, it was like, okay, maybe you use that more in the game plan. Now, I know you're a center and you're not the offensive coordinator, but one thing I observed from my perch, as it were.
Yeah, no, we've definitely done that before.
All right. Now, we meant to talk about ASU here. You mentioned the fact that a big game, obviously, a big name opponent, but ASU is a regional rival of BYU's. Now, the last time they were in the same conference is nearly 50 years ago, and my grandfather, who recently passed away, we talked about that rivalry shortly before he passed. And he talked about the fact that was a very intense rivalry back in the day, but it's been nearly 50 years. And BYU's played ASU off and on during that time. Are you looking forward to this matchup, though, going into it on Saturday?
No doubt. No doubt. Fired up to play. I'm fired up to play every week, and it's this week's no different. And it's obviously it's a very meaningful game for both teams in terms of their conference hopes and things like that, so that adds another layer of intensity. Obviously it's a lot of fun to go into a hostile environment. I think this game is sold out.
It is, yeah.
For ASU, and I haven't seen that stadium full in decades. So, I think that's going to add some juice, for them and for us too. There's a lot of members of the church in that valley.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? I saw someone sent me some comments from their head coach talking about if you're going to sell your tickets, make sure you sell them to ASU fans, right? Because they understand how BYU can take over an opposing stadium, and so who knows? It'll be fun to see how much of that stadium ends up being blue. But no, super fired up for the challenge because they're a good team and they've been playing good ball.
Now, you're right. Kenny Dillingham did say that, yes, if you're going to sell your tickets, make sure they have like an Arizona State hat or anything like that. I do think it's creating a little bit of a conflict. I have some loose family connections to the Valley of the Sun down there in Tempe and the greater Phoenix area. And there's a lot of people who I mentioned members of the church, but also ASU is the hometown school. And there's like this thing like, do I support BYU or do I support ASU? And I think that conflict is going to reign supreme on Saturday, Connor.
Well, great. Hopefully we can hopefully people down there, BYU fans, members of the church, can figure it out. You probably want to root with where your tithing's going.
There you go. Good point by you. All right.
To the school, I'll say. I guess we don't get any of it in the athletic department, but to the school at least, right?
It's still helping in some form or fashion. Let's just put it.
Yes, of course.
All right. We will get to the questions that have been submitted by our Locked On Cougars Insider Group momentarily. Some of them a lot of them on ASU, obviously, and we'll get to those as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends, a new friend over at Skylight Frames. Now, if you're thinking I'm going to be selling you a skylight for your house, that's not what I'm talking about here. What we're talking about is it's a great way to keep in touch with the family and friends you may be separated from by long distances. A lot of us this holiday season want to be a part of each other's lives. Well, if you have loved ones who live far away and wish they could be close to you, you guys should check out what our friends at Skylight Frames have for you guys. They offer a frame that can be updated with pictures in literal seconds. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds wherever these loved ones might be. It's easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. Seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription are required. And all of you can share in the fun of being able to stay up to date with everybody else and what they're doing in their life. The touchscreen is a game changer as well. You can swipe through the photos. You don't have to wait to find one that comes through on the rotation once again. Tap to see new photos that pop up. Tap the heart button and say thank you to the sender. A whole lot more. And the best part is the photos are displayed in HD resolution. You can choose up to 5 different frame styles. Set it to portrait or landscape mode. It's customizable to what you guys are looking for. And they also have satisfaction guaranteed. They're confident you will love Skylight. They offer free 120-day returns if you do not. So right now is a special limited time offer for our Locked On Cougars Insider listeners. Get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame. You go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME. That's skylightframe.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here for you guys to get you taken care of when it comes to your sports betting needs. You're ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel as they are America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers bet a $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Simple as that. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your bets live on the NFL or anything else, really, all in one place. When you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. And you can take advantage, once again, of this offer, $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. As simple as that. Visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com, and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Hope you're having a fantastic day whenever you hear and or watch this. Continuing on with Connor Pay, BYU team captain here on the podcast. And Connor, I got a great question about ASU right out of the chute as we get to the Q&A portion of today's show. Comes from our good friend Brian. Says, Connor, do you believe this is one of the biggest games in BYU football history on Saturday?
Sure. Sure. If you think about the implications, then yeah.
Okay, well, that's pretty simple. Because obviously, whoever wins this game essentially has the inside track at going to Arlington to play for a Big 12 title, and therefore, if you win that game, you have the automatic berth into the college football playoff. And that obviously, I think, is motivation enough for you guys because we already talked about it. You guys have control of your fate in your hands. Now, the other question, I'm going to combine two of them here, essentially, come from Laramie as well as Ethan. I think Tanya also had a similar thought, asking about what's the mood of the team, but also at the same time, is this an opportunity to kind of show your guys' resilience even more so than you've showed at different points this year? Because you guys have been down in games and found ways to win, but now that you've lost, is this another opportunity to show that resilience you guys have shown all year long, albeit now with a blemish on your record?
Absolutely. I think we've done a good job of responding to adverse situations all year, and this is no different. It's just bigger. So obviously a loss carries more magnitude than being down, in the fourth quarter of a game or something like that, but your response is the same, and um, I think just the way guys are attacking the week and just the motivation that the team has to improve
Okay.
from this. Um, you know, and it's definitely an opportunity, to show resilience. And because you're gonna have adverse situations in your life, and you have to be able to respond to them. And this is the current one for the current stage of our life.
Okay. All right. Look at you getting all philosophical. Look at this, Connor. Like, man, this podcasting life is meant for you, Mr. 2 Point Conversion over here, by the way.
I read a lot.
You do read a lot, but you are a fantastic podcast host in your own right as well.
Oh, thank you.
Now, Marvin wanted to ask this as well. How did it feel your first week back after being out due to injury overall against Kansas?
Good. I was really happy with how well my foot held up because, again, it had only been 6 weeks since I broke it, and it honestly felt really solid for the most part. Obviously, I had to shake off a little bit of rust. Thankfully, I got most of that off in practice, but obviously, getting into a real game, real speed, is a little different, and I think, I think the nice thing now is I'm kind of over that hump of the initial soreness. My foot was really sore the first few days of practice after being fully active on it again, and today is the best it's felt, and so I think it's improving incrementally, which is really nice, knowing that it's going to recover better each day, and so I feel every day I feel more and more like back to normal, because obviously it's not an instant fix. I had 4.5 days to prepare, to play a game again, and so it felt really good to be out there. Obviously, like just getting back to where I'm like full springy again, really powerful in my double teams and stuff like that. I think that I felt a lot better with some of that stuff today that, comes back incrementally. But, really pleased with how my foot's responded and how well it's recovered because I'm virtually like it gets a little achy sometimes after practice and things like that, but it's not really painful, which I'm really grateful about.
Now, I was also going to just insert this. How much rehab are you still doing on it? Like you talk about it maybe a little achy. Like how much work are you still doing in the training room with it?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot. More in the and now it's more shifted from prep to play
Okay.
as it is recovery now, where it's like I'm getting a ton of stress and a ton of work on my ankle and stuff as I play and practice.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's okay, now let's get the foot recovered so we can do it again tomorrow. Whereas
Okay.
before in the training room, it's like, let's work the calf, let's work the ankle because I couldn't get it anywhere else. Um, and now it's more, I'm using what's called a beamer. I'm doing laser treatments, I'm doing what's called a Hevamat to help move, swelling out of my foot and stuff when I'm done. And that stuff has been huge. Infrared light bed, things like that. Just more, and now it's more so shifted to okay, now we can really work it hard. So how do we, just like any other muscle in your body, like how do we recover it now? And so that's kind of where the focus is from a training room perspective, and it's been great so far.
All right. You got time for 3 more questions. We'll roll through these. So first one comes from Brady. What grade would you give to the offense and also in particular the offensive line of late? And I'll get to the second part after you answer that.
The grade is the offense as a whole, obviously not good. Not good. When you can't score, it's impossible to give a good grade to an offense. As well as we move the ball up and down the field, right? And statistically speaking, it was a good game for us running the football and things like that. And, had a lot of yards per carry and all those things. If you can't score points, not a good grade for the offense. And for the O-line, I felt like overall we had a pretty solid game. Obviously we had our moments and had our mistakes too, but I felt like for the most part, we were picking up what the defense was doing and recognizing what was happening and getting our blocks and like I said, people make mistakes, and they're good players too. Sometimes you get beat, that happens, but um, I felt like the O-line, we had a pretty decent, pretty solid game, and then obviously just as an offense, we got to be able to execute together better as a group in the red area.
Well, you answered the second part of the question. Essentially, what do you guys need to improve on? And you said score, finished product, like
red area execution in the red area.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, next question. This one comes from Reagan, and I think this is a curious question because I think in a way it's both good and bad. So here's you go. With all the pressure on the team being previously undefeated, is losing one kind of a blessing in disguise to help get the train back on track? He says it's hard to go undefeated, and the pressure has to mount as the weeks go on. Does it help you to recalibrate and get focused and take that pressure off, even though you don't want to lose, but with that loss now in the books?
Well, I think that's how you have to take it now that it's happened. We have no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you have to turn it into a pot. What else are we going to do?
Sure.
Sit here and sulk in it for an entire week and let Kansas beat us twice?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, you have to take it, respond, use it as motivation. So my answer to that question would be absolutely yes. To where like that's the mindset we have to take to what happened this last weekend and how we prepare and how we attack this week. We have to prepare, practice, train, lift, do all those things better than Arizona State is this week. And sometimes a kick in the pants is what's needed for some people to get to that point, right? And so I think you have to take it that way. We don't have another choice.
Got it. I think that's the right answer on your side of things. All right, final one comes from Landon, and this is a curious one because I have my perspective from the media side on this very topic. I want your perspective being on inside a team. So here's the question. This comes from Landon. I've heard a lot of arguments about fans saying, quote, we, unquote, when referring to the team. What is Connor's opinion on fans saying we?
I don't know if I've ever thought about that before.
Well, from the media perspective, let's just put it this way. Media members who use we kind of irks me in a way because I, from my perspective, I'm not on the field making the play that you're making out there.
No, media members, very different. For the most part, I don't like any of you, in the general sense. I like you, right? That's obviously why I do this podcast. Obviously why I do this podcast, but I do hold the opinion that 98% of media members are snakes. And so I wouldn't classify any zero media members. I don't think any of them should use that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Fans, I mean, obviously fans aren't on the field and they don't actually have to do the job, right? Like, they're not there when we're grinding and pushing our bodies to the brink all off season long for 9 straight months so we can play well during the season, but at the same time, fans contribute their energy to the games, their prayers, money, a lot of them that goes to the program. And so I don't, BYU is one big family, right? And that's the kind of culture Kalani wants, and that's the culture of the school. And so, I mean, obviously I've never thought about that before. So this is kind of just my off the cuff thoughts about it, but I don't have any issues with fans, saying we, because we want them to be a part of this, and even though obviously it doesn't, the responsibilities aren't the same. It is one big journey we're all on together, but media members, absolutely not.
Proud to be part of the 2%, baby. Let's go.
You are.
I'll take that. Now, but you make a good point. The investment's a little different, but there is investment there, especially in the era of NIL. There's
sure.
So
yeah, we're grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Connor, best of luck against ASU. Using some good weather down there. It's supposed to be like mid-70s, maybe 80 degrees. Like, I know that you're a cold weather guy.
Yeah, I was looking at the weather in Tempe this last week. It was in the mid-60s, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to be amazing. It's going to be in the mid-70s, which is a little warm for me, but still going to be beautiful. Can't wait.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. We'll reconvene next week. It's going to be senior day, Connor. I don't want to put a pressure on you, but it's going to be senior week for you next week. So crazy.
Well, it was going to come whether I liked it or not. So no reason to be sad about it.
Well, crazy times all the same. Best of luck against the Sun Devils, and we will catch you next week. All right.
Thank you.
All right, that is Connor Pay. I'm Jake Hatch. As always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Coming up on tomorrow's show, Locked On Sun Devils host Richie Bradshaw and myself do a crossover edition, previewing more about this game from both sides of the coin, talking BYU and Arizona State. So stay tuned for that right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.